Thank you, Josh and Alicia. I have to say, on behalf of the school, I am really touched by both your commitment to the community and to public interest. This truly is the highest participation we've ever had of a graduating class in the history of the school. So it really is a testament to your dedication. Now, I am truly honored to introduce this year's commencement speaker. Over the last half-century, one of the most fundamental moral challenges confronting our social order has been the system of apartheid in South Africa. This afternoon's speaker, who received her graduate degree from Penn Law in 1990, was instrumental in the fall of that horrific system. Today, as the first black female on the South African Constitutional Court, she is continuing to lead the legal transformation of South Africa. Her life story is the stuff of legend. The second of 9 children, she grew up in a close-knit but devastatingly poor South African family. Her father was a railroad laborer and her mother a washerwoman. Like everyone of her race in South Africa during those years, she was also subject to blinding prejudice. Despite these overwhelming disadvantages, her drive for education was extraordinary and made all the difference. Against all odds, at a young age, she was able to win a highly competitive academic scholarship. In college, she was an excellent student who spoke 7 languages and might have chosen a number of different types of academic careers. However, the decision to pursue law came after a defining life event. One Friday night, she was caught in one of the blanket sweeps of the South African streets that was quite common during those years. When the police detained her, they tore her infant son from her arms and threw her into a van with other innocents. She then watched in horror as the police tortured her fellow detainees by trampling their backs to destroy their kidneys. When a defiant black lawyer later secured her release, she vowed to devote her life to the law. The rest, as they say, is and made history. After completing her South African legal education, she began her career as an academic. She quickly developed a remarkable reputation for her scholarly work and efforts on behalf of women and children's rights. As her prominence grew, in order to widen her perspective on the law, she reluctantly left her family to study law full-time in the United States at Penn Law. It was a difficult separation. At one point during her studies, her husband was arrested in South Africa, and she immediately made plans to return. But Nelson Mandela called her at Penn and promised that he would secure her husband's release. It was more important for the long-term future of South Africa, Mandela advised, that she continue her education. When the South African National Congress was unbanned later that year, she returned after her Penn Law graduation to South Africa to help lead its legal transformation. Over the next few years, she was a prominent advocate in the country as a law professor and lawyer. She ultimately became the first black female appointed to the bench, and in 1994, the first continued when she was named the first black female on the South African Supreme Constitutional Court. It was and still is a central position in the transformation of that society. The court is empowered to overturn the decisions of the democratically elected branches of government that are inconsistent with the new Constitution. In other words, a judicial system which had enforced the laws of apartheid was quickly charged with helping to oversee its destruction. In this position, our speaker has been a thoughtful and eloquent jurist. Drawing on her academic background, she's authored critical opinions on capital punishment, which they declared unconstitutional, the rights of women, children, and gays. She's also been very active in law reform more generally, serving as chairperson of the South African Law Reform Commission. Known as both brilliant yet unassuming, Justice Mokgoro will leave an extraordinary legacy, one for which her alma mater takes the greatest pride. Earlier today, the University of Pennsylvania conferred upon Justice Mokgoro its highest honor, an honorary degree of law. It is indeed a very special personal and institutional pleasure to introduce one of the legal profession's most treasured figures, Justice Yvonne Mokgoro.
Thank you so much, Dean Fitz, for inviting me once again to be the commencement speaker at today's graduation ceremony for the class of 2009. It gives me great pleasure, and I am truly honored to have been invited again. And as you mentioned, the particular honor that I feel today is having been conferred with an honorary doctorate in law this morning by the university, and that too was a truly humbling experience. Thank you so much. Warm congratulations to the class of 2009. I congratulate you. I know you will do well, despite the financial crisis or financial crunch that we experience the world over. And I will congratulate you, and I know we all expect much of you despite the financial crisis. And we know that we are going to overcome it, so that despite that crisis, with an anticipation that we will overcome it, you will go out there and do very well and become some of the world's best lawyers. I know. A powerful saying by author George Burns, when he jests about the creation, he says, "And God said," and I quote, "Let there be Satan, so people don't blame everything on me. And let there be lawyers, so people don't blame everything on Satan." Fortunately, he said it in jest, because when I heard it for the first time and I was a young lawyer, I didn't like it one bit. Now, much which is not complimentary has indeed been said of lawyers. As Justice Arthur Charles Gilson, one of my former colleagues, who was also the former Chief Justice of South Africa, once had us in stitches when he noted the Oxford Dictionary definition of the word attorney, which was often used reproachfully in the sense of a knave or a swindler. He also reveals that the name lawyer is given to a bramble full of thorns because once they get hold of you, you don't easily get rid of them. He goes on to relate how in Australia there's a plant named the lawyer palm, which is so named because the stems and leaves are laden with the sharpest thorns which cling to a person and are capable of actually drawing blood. But do not despair, because in our reality, lawyers have won many a legal battle for their clients, of course. Prominent United States lawyer and political leader John W. Davis once said of lawyers, and I quote, "True, we built no bridges, we raise no towers, we construct no engines, we paint no pictures, unless, of course, as amateurs for our own principal amusement. There's a little of all that we do which the eye can see, but we smooth out the difficulties, we correct the mistakes, we take up other people's burdens, and by our own efforts, we make possible the peaceful life of people in a peaceful state," unquote. Significantly, lawyers have also been at the forefront of the struggle for social justice and just political change. They have led the cause for rights and political consciousness, always prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice. In the American context, the work of leading lawyers such as Thurgood Marshall and others in the role that they played in the NAACP within the context of the American civil rights movement is particularly significant. In South Africa, the significance of the role played by other prominent lawyers like Nelson Mandela, Oliver Tambo, and Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe in the struggle against apartheid is equally illuminating. And as you can see, as a new generation of lawyers, rest assured that you are in great company indeed. Now, having said that, many would argue that whether a newly graduated lawyer will become one who is a swindler or one who will advance the cause of justice is largely determined by your law school experience. It is generally said that in the relationship between the law school and its student, there is mutual influence. You can influence your law school as much as your law school can influence you. There is an interconnectedness which creates a relationship which is equally strengthening and mutually strengthening. Your competence as new lawyers and your commitment to professional and ethical standards will in many ways be shaped by professional values instilled in law school and beyond. Institutional aims and objectives, the quality of legal education and training, including the methodology adopted by your law school, and the academic and clinical programs on offer in the law school, often determine the areas of interest law students will develop. More significantly, however, the level and manner in which the law school interacts with surrounding communities and broader society and responds to their social, political, economic concerns often sharpens students' social consciousness and, to a greater or lesser degree, can affect how conversant they are with their social reality and how well prepared they will be to confront the real challenges of legal practice. Students, however, are not mere passive consumers of institutional values, as I said earlier. They are active participants in creating an institutional ethos because as much as we are products of our own environment, so too do we have a profound influence on it. And believe me, the more diverse the student body, as we have noticed, not only at this law school, but throughout this university we saw this morning, faculty and staff, the more diverse they are, the richer the system of values, and the more open-minded and tolerant the students become. A factor which has deep and wide significance for a contemporary global lawyer. A global lawyer who intends to become globally mobile. And as I say, if my experience at Penn as a law student and a scholar in residence is anything to go by, at Penn you have interacted with the best from the rest of the world. And I trust it will stand you in good stead. As you follow in the giant footsteps of legal professionals who came before you, men and women who have served and continue to serve the cause of justice with devotion and immense courage, you will certainly be confronted by major challenges in the real world, challenges which have the potential of bursting your bubble regarding the power and impact of the law in society. Do not be too cynical, like Mr. Bubble in Charles Dickens's Oliver Twist, who, when told that the law supposes that his wife acts under his direction, responded in utter cynicism. And I quote, "If the law supposes that, the law is an ass, an idiot." You will indeed realize that the limits of the law, as you are confronted with abject poverty, for example, alongside great wealth, one of the most debilitating realities of the world today, a disparity in wealth which can have a disturbing impact on access to justice for the poor and the most vulnerable people. It is when you come face to face with the indignities and inequalities of abject poverty that you will realize that the legal profession is more, much more than just about professional status, professional prestige, and professional power. You will want to question the integrity of the law and the fairness of its rules. But because, as a good lawyer, you will possess the full complement of emotional, perceptual, and intellectual powers to exercise your good judgment, you will find ways to best serve those that you represent. And once you realize that the practice of law is a service, know that you will become part of a tradition which requires from you effective lawyering. And until you become an effective lawyer in whatever career path you follow, you have not yet arrived. And it is upon you to ensure that you find creative ways to make your lawyering effective in the particular circumstances that you operate. That is important. Now, that will take a great deal of patience. It will take a great deal of empathy. It will take a great deal of diligence. Particularly, it will take a great deal of courage. Because sometimes it is not enough to know the law. You need to have the courage of your convictions. You need to have the courage to tread paths that have not been tread before. You will be criticized, you will be undermined, but you must have the courage of your convictions and use the law in the most effective way in order to make a difference. You will have to adhere to the highest standards, where there are no shortcuts. That also takes courage. Your effectiveness should become a source of your professional pride. Then, and once you do that, you will know that what you do constitutes a way of life with special worth. In conclusion, may I say most importantly, I wish you well as you enter the practice of law. But then, always avail yourself of opportunities to enhance the quality and the impact of the law. Be creative. You have received the best education and training in law that you could ever wish for. Use it to be creative. Search for new and innovative ways to facilitate access to justice for the most vulnerable people. And be mindful always of the disparities that exist in the globalized world today and of how you, as an effective lawyer, can bridge the gaps in the service that you provide. Always remember that it is never enough to be a lawyer. What is important and what will count is for you to be an effective lawyer. Congratulations once more. Go out there. Go out there into the real world and make a difference. Your presence has to be felt. And until your presence is felt, you have not yet joined the tradition. You have the best education. I know you will make it, despite the financial crunch.